time to move to adding and subtracting decimals, and some of this will be review from previous years, but we just want to go through a few steps, some steps for success, I guess you could say. I want to make sure you get these steps, but if you'll follow them, adding and subtracting decimals will be a breeze. Just follow these steps. So let's look at what we need to know. First off, adding decimals. And step one, and you notice that I put a lot of stars beside that. You need to do the same thing. Line up the decimals. Okay? Line up the decimals. Then add straight down, just like you normally would. And bring those decimals, bring it straight down to the answer. And then I highlighted here, when adding a whole number plus a decimal, add a decimal and needed zeros to the right of the whole number. So that's saying if you had a number like 12, well, there's no decimal there. We'll put a decimal to the right of 12 and add any zeros that you need to make it match up. It'll help things out, it'll keep things in order, and it'll make things make so much more sense. So we'll give that a try and you'll see what I mean here. So let's take this example here. We have 752 thousandths plus 1 and 69 hundredths. So step one said line up the decimals, correct? Go back, okay, line up the decimals. So 7, 5, 2, and then I'm going to fill in any empty spots with a 0. You know what? I'm going to add a step right here. Before you actually do any adding, do a quick estimate in your head. So let's look and see here. 752 thousandths. If I was to estimate that, I would look and see, is that closer to 0 or closer to 1? I'd say that's closer to 1. 1 and 69 hundredths, that is closer to 2. That would round up. So my estimate is that my answer should be somewhere near 3, just in my head. All right? So let's check and see. Now I'm going to go to the next step, which was just add. So 2 plus 0 is 2. 5 plus 9, 14. Carry my 1. 7 plus 6 is 13. Plus 1 is 14. Carry my 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And I have 2 and 442 thousandths. And if you look, I mean, it's not right at 3, but it is pretty close. I'm not too far off. So that tells me that my answer is probably correct. Okay? Lined up the decimals, added them. I added zeros where needed. Bring that decimal straight down. Okay, let's try one more. I have 12. And then I have 1 and 52 hundredths. Now, there's no decimal here to line up. And some people look at this and go, well, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, what did I say? Put a decimal to the right of the whole number. And now let's line up the decimals. Let's do a quick estimate. 12, well, that's close to 12. 1 and 52 hundredths, that's closer to 2. So I think my answer should be somewhere near 14. I'm going to add straight down 2 plus 0, 2. 5 plus 0, 5. Bring down my decimal. 2 plus 1, 3. 1 plus 1, 0. There's 13. And I have 13 and 52 hundredths. And if we look, it's pretty close to my estimate. Okay, let's go to subtract. I'm going to add in that step here too. You'll notice steps are pretty close to the adding, aren't they? Not much has changed. Line up the decimals. That's the most important thing you can do when adding and subtracting decimals. Do a quick estimate in your head, then subtract, just like you would, borrowing and everything else that you would normally do when you subtract. Bring the decimal straight down, and again, if you need to add zeros to fill in those place values or to add a decimal to a whole number, do that. It will make the problem easier. All right, so let's do what we just said. Let's line up the decimals. in these empty spots here, just so I keep everything in order. I'm going to do an estimate. This 8,102 10,000ths is closer to 1, because this would round that up to 1. This 2,500ths is really closer to 0. So my estimate is that my answer is probably going to be somewhere around 1, give or take a few. Okay, so let's just try our subtraction now. 2 minus 0, 2. 0 minus 0, 0. 1 minus 5, we've got to go over here and borrow. Make that 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. 7 minus 2 is 5. Bring down my decimal and my 0. And if this was rounded, it would be pretty close to 1. So I'm on track. I have the right answer. I lined up my decimals. I estimated. I filled in my zeros where I needed. I subtracted. Bring the decimal straight down. 14 minus now what did I do wrong there? Yeah, I know you can't answer me right now, but I want you to look at that. There's something wrong with that. Okay? Do you see what I did wrong? Okay? I did make a mistake, but I did it intentionally. This is a mistake that several people make. Because there's no decimal here, they think they have to line up the numbers. And we didn't say line up the numbers, did we? And we didn't say that. What you have to do is you have to, here's my eraser. That's not what I needed. There we go. Okay, let's erase that, and let's start over. 14, that's a whole number, like $14. That's not dealing with change. So there is a decimal, but when you just have a whole number, you don't have to write the decimal. But it's imaginary, right there. So that means this decimal needs to go underneath it. And that is why you have to add the zeros there. Now, before you get carried away, here's another common mistake. Some people get going too fast, and they do this. 0 minus 6, 6. 0 minus 5, 5. You can't do that. 0 minus 6, this is place value. You can't take 6 away from this place value. You have to borrow. This is a borrowing problem. Okay, so don't get carried away. Remember the things that you learned in 4th and 5th grade, okay, and let's apply those. So I have to come over here and borrow, making that a 10, but then I've got to borrow from it again, making it a 9, and this becomes a 10. Now, this becomes a 4. 10 minus 6 is 4. 9 minus 5 is also 4. Bring the decimal down. And then this is 0. And that is 13 and 44 hundredths. And I forgot a step. Nobody was here to tell me to do it. Okay? But if I was going to do that step, I should have done it earlier. That's just an estimate, but I can still go back and check and see. 14 minus, this would round to 1. So my estimate answer should be 13. And I am pretty close to that. All right, your turn. 15 minus 45 hundredths. And then 13 plus 2 and 45 hundredths. See you in class.